okay, why didn't you call me 3 engines ago? So I'm an attorney and I specialize in lemon law. I've been practicing lemon law for 30 years. My office is not far from Detroit, so we've got the big three right there. They love me. I've been suing them for 30 years. So people often ask me about the lemon law. What is it? How does it work? But then they also say, are there really that many bad cars out there? And I say, oh yeah, in fact, it's kept me busy for 30 years. People go, well, lawyers file lawsuits. How bad can these cars be? Well, let me give you some examples. I had a client once whose little Dodge, the little Daytonas they came out with in the late 80s, early 90s, went through 7 engines. 7 engines. The guy calls me up and says, hey, Steve, I got a car. I think it's a lemon. I go, why is it? And he goes, it's on its 7th engine right now. And I said, okay, why didn't you call me 3 engines ago? But the point is that he came into my office and he puts the repair orders on my desk. You can't argue with the repair orders. Engine blows up, replaced. Engine blows up, replaced. 7 engines. And so I filed a lawsuit on this, and Chrysler buys it back instantly. They pay my attorney fees, so everyone's happy. Everyone wins. And then you might ask yourself, but wait a second. Why would a brand new car go through 7 engines? And then you understand one of the reasons that lemons exist. It's not that the car was bad. It's not that the engines were bad. There's no way that they actually grabbed replacement engines at random and they were all bad. There was something else going on. And I've spoken to people who are zone reps, who represent the factories and interface with the dealerships. And I've spoken to mechanics, and I've spoken to all these different people at different levels in these dealerships. And they say, here's the problem with modern corporate automotive America. Dealership sells a car. Car comes back for warranty work. The manufacturer is going to pay for the warranty work, but they will only authorize so much work for, diagnosis and analysis. And then when it comes to actually doing the repair. So they can't just say, we want to do this or we want to do that. They got to call and get it approved. And what was happening in that particular case was there was something else that was causing problems, and they were replacing the short block only. So a short block, for the non-car guys in the audience, is the middle part of the engine, and is the stuff that gets attached to the short block. And it can vary from engine to engine, but they might, for instance, be taking parts off the old engine and putting them on the short block for the new engine, and the part that they're putting on could be what's causing the engine failure. So somebody, somewhere, looking at this warranty history as this car comes in over and over again, should have said, wait, there's no way that this guy got 2 engines, 3 engines, 4 engines in a row that are bad. But what happened was the mechanic would go, well, it's got a blown engine. He'd call to get some work authorized. They go, you get 15 minutes of diagnosis, throw in another short block. He should have said, wait a second, short block ain't going to do it because you keep blowing up short blocks. For whatever reason, that call either didn't get made or didn't get approved. So somewhere down the road, they buy this vehicle back after it's gone through 7 engines. But the point is, car was a lemon. What caused that vehicle to become a lemon? Well, there was something wrong with the original engine, but it was not diagnosed properly. So interestingly enough, the manufacturer is who's going to buy a vehicle back under lemon law, not the dealership. So sometimes you'll find that dealerships don't even really care if your vehicle becomes a lemon. I actually know a guy who's a service manager at a major dealership in Michigan who's got a stack of my business cards. And he hands them out to people, and I walk up very casually and go, by the way, call this guy, your car's a lemon. So it happens. The thing about the lemon law is it's very specific. Your vehicle's got to be in the shop so many times within so many years, and it varies from state to state. All 50 states have got lemon laws. So in some states, it's got to be in the shop, like Michigan, 4 times basically that it cannot be repaired. But the first time within the first year, and then all 4 within the first 2 years. So if your first defect occurs at day 366, it's not going to qualify as a lemon. Very, very specific things like that. Now, if the car's got a warranty and it's got a problem, there's other laws that cover it, like the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act. But the point is that lemons have these very, very specific designations like that. So, for instance, I had a client driving on the freeway in Detroit, and the steering wheel of his brand new car fell off in his lap. So he very quickly jams it back on and pulls the car to the side of the road. And as he regains his composure, as we say, what's he going to do now? So he shuts the car off, and before cell phones, walks, calls a dealership. Dealership comes and gets it. And they go, oh, yeah, your steering wheel fell off because a nut came undone. We tightened it for you. Well, now my client doesn't want to drive that car again, rightfully so, because he almost died the last time he did because the steering wheel fell off in his lap. Guess what? 1 repair attempt. And in Michigan, that's not a lemon law claim. Now, there again are other laws that we pursued it and we actually did get the car bought back. But some states have a third prong. So the first prong is it spends 4 times in the shop first 2 years. Second prong is it spends 30 days in the shop in the first year. Third prong in some states is if it has multiple failures of a safety-related system. So your brakes fail a couple times. That might be a lemon in some states. Your steering wheel falls off in your lap. The scary part is it's going to happen more than once. So, I would have a hard time as an attorney advising you, take it out. If it falls off again, call me back. That's a defective car. A lot of people call that a lemon, but it's not a lemon in the truest sense of Michigan's lemon law. I get phone calls about a lot of defective products. And there was actually a point in time where I would represent anybody if they called me with a defective product I'd never handled before. So I've represented people who've bought cars, trucks, snowmobiles, personal watercraft, ATVs, sewing machines, things of that nature. So I get a lot of phone calls about RVs. And I got bad news for the people out there who are thinking about buying their first RV. Don't, unless you really know what you're getting into. RVs in most states do not have lemon law coverage. You can drop 6 figures on an RV. It can cost more than your house, and you can drive it down the road with no lemon law coverage in most states. So I've had people buy $250,000 RVs that don't run, $150,000 RVs that leak whenever it rains. Bad news about an RV is it tends to be parked outdoors, so the rain is a problem. I had a guy who bought a $250,000 RV that caught on fire if he drove it over 50 miles an hour. So he's driving down the road. He just bought this thing brand new, and people are pulling alongside of him, honking and pointing, which is not a good thing when people are doing that to you on the road. So he pulls over to the side of the road. He gets out, and there's smoke coming off of the rear axle of this gigantic $250,000 motorhome. So it's smoke, but it's smoldering. It's not actually burning in that sense. It was something to do with the bearings. So I think he may have hit it with a fire extinguisher, but I don't know. And then he calls the manufacturer and goes, I'm out in the middle of nowhere. What do I do? They go, bring it to one of our facilities. He goes, well, it starts smoking when I do 50. And they go, well, drive it slower. So he brings it into a repair facility that's authorized to repair these vehicles. They tear the axle apart and they go, yeah, there's a bearing back there. It's smoked. We'll replace the bearing for you. They replace the bearings, put it all back together again, paid for by the manufacturer, gets in it, starts driving down the road, starts smoking again. He went through that process several times and discovered he could never drive it over 50 without the axle smoking. So he would call the manufacturer up and goes, guys, this is not acceptable. They go, why? And he goes, every time I drive it over 50, the axle starts smoking? They go, well, every time you've complained, we fixed it. And their position was, if it happens again, we'll fix it. Because the cost of slapping in a new set of bearings wasn't that much. The problem is, it wasn't the bearings. It was something else. Where the bearings are seated, it could have been something with the axle, I don't know. But that's not your job as the consumer to figure that stuff out. So we had to file a lawsuit on that, and we actually got that one worked out in court also. But the funny thing was that in litigation, we have to hire an expert mechanic. I know a certified master who inspects vehicles for me. He figured the problem out almost instantly. He goes, it's not the bearings. He goes, the axle's screwed up. And it came out that the RV manufacturer that builds the house unit doesn't build the chassis. The chassis comes from a separate manufacturer. So it winds out being that there's 3 different defendants and they're all pointing their fingers at each other. And that happens a lot, unfortunately, with complex things like that. Lemon law also does not cover commercial vehicles. I've had people buy 6-figure over-the-road trucks, owner-operators who bought their own truck with their own money, and the things break down. And they say, oh, bring it back in, we'll work on it. Yeah, but when you're working on it, I'm not making any money. Oh, that's too bad. We had you sign a disclaimer at the front end of this saying you can't sue us for lost wages. And guess what? The guy's got the thing in the shop for months at a time while they're working on it, trying to fix it. And, that's the problem you got. I had a guy who bought a car, a used car, young man, recently married, young family, working very, very hard, but he was a little hard up financially. And he bought a used car from a very, very reputable car dealer in Oakland County, just north of Detroit, Michigan. And he came out the car one day and he couldn't get the door open on the driver's side. So he walks around the passenger side, can't get that door open either. It's kind of strange. And so he had just bought the vehicle, but it was used. See, and lemon law does not cover used cars. But he's got to get something done here. He needs the car to get to and from work. So he calls up the dealership. They go, well, we just sold you the car. We'll take a look at it. They tow the car in and they give him a little bit of a run around. And finally they go, well, the car was traded into us and it's not covered by any warranty, but we can show you what's wrong with it. And of course, it was a car that had been Frankensteined. It was cut at the firewall. The front end was from one car, the back end was from another car. And somebody had gone to a junkyard and said, hey, wait a second. That front end will fit that back end. Bought both cars, sawed them in half, welded them together. And once you popped the hood and looked, you could see the weld that went all the way around inside there, basically, holding the front end and the back end together. And of course, as you drive it over time, as those welds start to break, the car starts to do this and you can't open the doors. And the scary part about that, of course, is the dealership goes, well, we sold it to you as is. You can't go after us. Then the problem, of course, is there's some other issues with, but the guy who traded it in. We wound up actually getting that vehicle bought back because there's laws like misrepresentation and fraud and so on of people who don't disclose things that they knew or should have known. And the question is, does the dealership really not notice that a car has been cut in half and stuck together again? And the funny thing is, when I saw that case, when I saw that car, I actually saw the car with my own eyes, I remember thinking, like, wow, who does something like this? And after talking about it with people, I've had people say, oh, I've heard of that before. It's not that uncommon. So there are guys out there who are very, very talented mechanically, who can do these kinds of things. And there's other guys who go, yeah, and if we do this, we can sell it and make a bunch of money. The question, of course, is whether those hold, whether the welds are going to last or not. One of the other crazier things in my career is I've handled hundreds, if not thousands, of lemon law lawsuits. I've actually represented several people more than once, where they actually bought a bad car. A few years later, they bought another bad car. It's very unusual. Most cars are not lemons, so that doesn't happen very often. But on one occasion, I represented the same truck twice. And a client of mine bought a brand new Ford pickup truck. It had some problems, and Ford very, very quickly bought it back. Thank you very much. Paid my client off, paid my attorney fees. Everyone's happy. A few months goes by, and I get a really cryptic phone call. A woman goes, hi, I'm calling you about a used truck I just bought. And I started to tell her the lemon law does not cover used trucks. She goes, well, you're going to want to hear about this one. I go, why is that? And she said, because it was owned by your former client. And she tells me the name of my client. I said, how did you know that? She goes, well, the truck's got all kinds of mechanical problems, as you know. And I took it to the dealership that I bought it from. And one of their write-up people pulled me aside and said, I'm not sure how you got this truck, but that truck was just bought back under the lemon law. And I eventually figured this out, but the way most car companies work, at least at that time in Michigan, if they bought something back under the lemon law, they would buy it back, and Michigan does not brand titles as lemon law buybacks. Some states do, maybe 12 states, but Michigan does not. The manufacturers would take those bought back lemons to an auction and sell them to car dealers. It was a closed auction only for car dealers. And they would ship the car with a notice saying this vehicle was bought back under the lemon law. Here's what was wrong with it. Here's what we did to fix it. And they'll extend the warranty on that. And that's supposed to travel with the vehicle. And so this vehicle got bought at auction by the same dealership that had sold it the first time. So they got to sell the same vehicle a second time. So there's a thing in the law that says at a corporation like that, the business, the dealership, they've got knowledge. They knew this thing was a lemon law buyback. They didn't disclose that to buyer number two. But they also didn't give her the document saying this is a lemon law buyback. So in doing so, they broke their agreement with Ford as part of their dealership agreement. So I got to call up a buddy of mine at the time in the legal department at Ford and say, guess what? I got the same vehicle, you got to buy it back a second time. And I've had people say, but Steve, it's not their fault. Well, no, but they're going to get the money back from the dealership because the dealership broke the agreement because the agreement was if you buy this vehicle from us at this auction and resell it, you must pass along this document. And I later spoke to my guy and I said, I'm curious what happened. And he goes, when they returned the documents to Ford to indicate that this vehicle had been sold to a second buyer, that document was mysteriously left blank. And he goes, I think they were doing it to make it look like we'd notified her and we just forgot to fill out the paperwork.
If you get a speeding ticket or other traffic citation, don't just pay it. It can involve costly insurance premium increases, points on your license, possible suspensions, and a lot of other inconveniences. And when you fight it, you want the right people on your side. That means finding a local lawyer to wherever you got the ticket, even if it's in your backyard or on a road trip or wherever. Off the record is the best way to find the best attorney. They pair you with a local attorney wherever you get the ticket to fight for you and achieve the best outcome. In most cases, you won't even have to appear. So be sure to check them out at the link in the description below and download their free app. You just take a picture of your ticket and they handle the rest. So be sure to check them out and thank them for their support of VINwiki.